taking the Shahada, your worldview is flipped in one moment. Come as you are to Islam as it is. And that is so powerful.
I love that.
Yeah. I commend a lot of Muslims who invite converts to their iftar and Eid. I think every Muslim should be asking, how do I make the means of felicity for someone else's relationship with God, whether that person is a Muslim or non-Muslim?
رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. Welcome back to the 6 Degrees podcast. Today we have a very special guest, as we say every time.
And it's true. They're always special.
It's true. I'm waiting for the not special guest. But yeah, we have a very special guest. And Hannah, why don't you tell us a little bit more about them?
We're really honoured to have Josh on today. So Josh is the founder of Convert Collective and has been a Muslim for the past 6 years, or reverted to Islam 6 years ago. He has been inspired, and I guess recently Convert Collective came about in around 2022, was it, Josh? Or yeah, alhamdulillah. So Convert Collective started in 2022, and it was inspired by Talif and New Beginnings and other grassroots organisations across North America and the UK. It's really a community and a beautiful one that I have had the pleasure to attend the events of sometimes, where reverts and converts have felt supported, seen and embraced, especially during our, times like Eid and Ramadan, where it can be especially isolating for converts. So through Convert Collective, Josh has been also involved in a variety of other organisations too. I know you were originally a part of Podium Productions. And of course, I know Josh because of his wife, Mariam, who is a very close friend of mine. So it brings me great pleasure today to introduce him on the podcast.
Alhamdulillah. Yeah, thank you. Pleasure to be here.
You're also an engineer by day.
Yes, by
which
day.
I think is important to
It's a very dry
mention.
topic, but yes, I am, yep.
Yeah, because a lot of us all involved in the dawa work and the community work, we're juggling these day and these night routines and alhamdulillah, so all props to you for doing all of that.
All from Allah.
We would like to acknowledge the Kulin Nation, the traditional custodians of the land on where we are located today. We pay our respects to elders past and present and to all First Nations people present with us today. We would also like to acknowledge the ongoing genocide and war going on in Palestine, as well as other oppressed countries such as Sudan and Congo. So today on the podcast, we have the topic of mental health, especially surrounding the convert community. And I think this is one that is especially prevalent within our community, as we have seen an increase in conversions to Islam in the past, decade or so. Right now, as it stands, 15.8% of Muslims or people that identify as Muslims were converts. And this was data collected in 2020. So we know that after Palestine, a lot of people have been inspired and there have been a lot of movements and dialogue. I think changing really the way Islam is being perceived by the general public, really. Islam is also the fastest growing religion right now as well. So all of that concerned, I think it's a very prevalent topic to be talking about right now. Alhamdulillah. And we thought that Josh was really the best guest to kind of cover this topic. I guess just to start off the conversation, and maybe a topic that is a bit obvious to some and maybe not so obvious to others, is the concept of, I guess, what converts like to be called. So there's a really big, I feel, division sometimes in what the preference is between the term converts and reverts. So Josh, can you run us through a little bit about what that looks like for you and what you feel about that topic?
Yeah. How long would you like me to talk about this? No. I'd just like to preface that obviously my experience as a Muslim is just my experience. There is definitely people I've met, both from born Muslims and convert, revert background, who have shared my experience, and there's also people who have had a different experience. So I guess I'm just one group in one sample size, and there's many different phenotypes. I think that's the first thing to understand when it comes to converts or reverts or new Muslims, is that no one size fits all. There is a broad category and everyone has their own preference, and I'm not here to be the representative for all converts. I'm just going to share my my experience and what I guess my preferences are, and I can give a bit of background to the stories that I've heard. I guess my personal view is I don't really mind what people call me, whether it's a new Muslim, convert, revert, like it really doesn't bother me. As long as there is an adab, as long as there is empathy, as long as there's a genuine care, like especially in my younger years of my Islam, when I really didn't know that much or didn't have that much support, what I was really after was just be a nice person to me. That was the biggest thing. So I don't care if people call me a new Muslim, if people are like, oh, you know, you're like a revert, you're like a baby, or, you know, some people be like, oh, you know, you're a convert, make sure people call you convert. Like, you know, I don't really mind. I think, you know, tracing back a few steps, some people might find offense to the word revert because in the English language, to revert means you are regressing, or there's that connotation of regressing in somewhat or shape or form. And it's a very interesting dialogue because some people would say that, hey, what led me to Islam were all these beautiful moments and beautiful chapters in my story. And so I can't discount those, you know? And I've experienced that as well, you know, like my mum, funny enough, like why I got involved in the dawa so much, I was thinking about this the other day. When I was young, my parents used to take me to Dandenong Market, and I was raised Christian, and they used to have a dawa stall. So they used to give pamphlets, Christian, like why God is true, you know, who is Jesus, all these little things, right? And people would come. That was me from age probably like 7 to 9. Like I'd spend I'd hated it because it was like, I had to wake up at 5 a.m. because you got to wake up at 5 a.m. to get the stall by 7 a.m. And then, because otherwise you lose the stall, someone else just comes and takes it. Yeah. And so, we have to do that. And there's all these pamphlets there, and like every other kid's just having fun on their weekend. I'm here talking about God. I'm like, I don't really care, you know. But yeah, that was one of those things that now I look back, that's probably what's given me a lot of drive to wish to be part of the dawa in the Islamic sense. And so that's one example of how someone's story may actually have contributed to their conversion. And some people are very hard and fast on, no, I don't want to be called a revert because convert is what I want. And other people's like, look, I like the idea of starting again. I like the idea that I'm coming back to what I was originally, or what I was on the fitrah when I was born. I like that concept. And that could have been because maybe they've had a troubled past, maybe they're trying to forget something, maybe it's just their preference. And so really at the end of the day, I don't think it really matters as long as you're checking in with the person, or you're like, you know, you actually mean to help. Like I think what's a good example is like, you know, I might be like, hey, Ahmed, how are you today, bro? Versus Ahmed, bro, why are you not good enough? You know what I mean? Like those two things, I've used bro in the same sentence. It's just how I've said that word. So it's like with new Muslims, I think it's very pertinent that it's not what you say per se, it's more how you say it. But, you know, there may be people who have their own choices. I hope that's answered the question. But
for sure.
What I prefer is, you know, I prefer convert lately. But if someone says revert, new Muslim, whatever, I'm just like, someone says Josh, no problem. Like I've even gotten used to the term of like sometimes you meet certain uncles, you meet certain Muslims who are maybe not from a Western background, and you say the word Joshua to them. Or you say that my name's Josh. They're confused. So I just say Yusha now, you know? So that way it just helps them to like settle into it, because like you can recognize, okay, this guy's not going to know. It's going to be very confusing for him. Yeah. As I'm talking about like a uncle from Afghanistan or Pakistan or India who's never set foot in Australia before, they're going to be so confused seeing what's this guy's name Josh for? You know, they're going to be confused. But if you say you should, it helps them a little bit. So that's just an example of, to bridging a gap. And that's all it is there, bridging the gap. Yeah.
Totally. Yeah. I think like the bothers I have with conversations like that sometimes is that people are so stringent. You know, there might not be a convert and they're so stringent on using either or term, like especially with revert, they're like, no, you have to use the word revert because it says something about, you know, the way you see Islam, you know. I think they take it sometimes very personally, but I think what you're kind of highlighting to me, at least within that conversation, is about just like taking the person who you're speaking to, their perspective into consideration.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
You would have been aware of Islam for a long time, and then I'm assuming you would have, you know, been somewhat interested in it, started reading about it, but there would have been a moment when you're like, whoa, I need a
the eureka.
The aha.
What was that? Yeah. Interesting. I think I know what you're asking. So, I think it's like when you ask, at least for me, when everyone's asked me this question, like, you know, what brought you to Islam? It changes every time. Wow. Because you start to realize in your own journey little things that you had no idea of. That's purely, as I believe, getting a bit spiritual here, but as you get closer to Allah, He shows you more of who you really are. Like He gets closer to you and you start to understand, you know, the real connecting with the real. And so you start to get this idea that, hey, there was this thing that happened in my life that at the time meant no significance at all, like absolutely no significance. And yet it helped me gain a conscious ability to interpret Islam in a way that Allah was trying to show me Islam, you know?
SubhanAllah.
And I think there's so many moments of that. So like, what was that eureka moment? I really don't know. I'm still trying to figure out to this day. I think there was one, there was one moment where, this is when I was reading about Islam and I was very interested in it. And look, my mum had known that I was interested in Islam at that time because I started telling her about all these things. She didn't think I would ever convert, but she was just like, I was having these dialogues with her. And I remember hearing what she was saying about Christianity. And I remember me explaining about Islam. And it was that conversation that made me, I think it was that, it was over the dinner table. And I was actually at that point convinced in myself. So what I was saying, I wasn't just talking about Islam as a set of facts or a set of things or like concepts. I was like, okay, this is literally, I'm believing this, you know, like I'm believing what I'm saying. And then that was probably the moment it goes, okay, I need to start to like look into this a bit more and not just as okay, this is what they believe or this is what Muslims or have that mindset about. This is actually something I need to start deep diving myself. So I think that was one moment. Another moment was when I'd already been Muslim at this point.
Wow.
But someone told me about the nafs. And I was just like, good God, this is like life-changing. Like, because like as a non-Muslim, whether you've got many religions, maybe Buddhism and Sikhism is the closest that can replicate this, but not many talk about the ego in the way Islam talks about the ego. And so that got me really thinking about who am I, what am I doing on this earth, what's going on with me as a person. So that was one aha moment. Because it's like, you know, you might, especially the comment, you might come to Islam, you might be Muslim, but you can stay in this field where, okay, you're Muslim, you feel good about it, it's great. But then it's the education piece that leads to the experience piece, that as you uncover new words, meet new people, you're like, whoa, this is very deep. Like my teachers often say, like, you know, Islam's that thing where, you know, it's like a beach and the ocean. You can be at the beach smelling the ocean water, you're still at the beach. You can be on the border of where the waves are just hitting the beach and your feet are getting wet, and you're still at the beach. And then you can start to go into the ocean. That's when you go into the ocean, you know what I mean? Like that's when you're deep diving. These are the people who are like the scholars and the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he was like really in that water, you know? It's like we're all mostly sitting at the beach, you know, watching that nice little horizon. So, but as you start to get more welcome into the community, as you start to understand these concepts, even as a new Muslim, you start to walk closer to the water because it's safer for you to walk closer to the water. And that's what, jumping forward a couple of steps here, that's what Convert Collective sort of aims to do, because that was my experience. Like as I started to meet new people, as I started to understand new things, I had more of those aha moments. But what did that look like before I was Muslim? Very varied. I remember there was this one time I was wanting very much to be Muslim, but I was cognizant of the fact of like, you know, what would my friends think? What would my parents think? What would just genuinely, what would even the people at work think? Yeah. And subhanAllah, I never used to notice Muslims at that time. Never used to notice them. And as I was driving every day, I'd see so many Muslims. Like, it's like, you know, you're looking for a yellow car. Like you're thinking about Islam, you're seeing Muslims.
It's like the confirmation bias. Or
One
of the biases.
Yeah. And I was like, where do these people come from? Like literally, I was just like, I haven't seen these Muslims, like, and these are visibly Muslim people. And so you start interacting with them, meeting them at your work. And like, I went to uni with some Muslims as well, but it was never really like that I was cognizant of talking to them. Like, you know, they were my friends, but they were also my friends who went to the bar and to the club, you know what I mean? Wow. So it's like, you know, but there was points that, you know, as I started to learn more about it, you engage with them in those places. So like, you know, there's doof music going on and you're asking them. And you're
talking about the nafs?
Yeah. No, you're more so asking them like, you know, what's God to you, man? You know, like why, like how do you pray? You know, there's one funny story where there's this one guy, he put his beard down. I won't name names, but he put his beard down and we were just at someone's house and he demonstrated me how to pray. He's like, this is how I pray. Yeah.
Muslim guy.
Yeah. So it's one of those things where it's like, you know, there's all these little moments that add up to the shahada. Yeah. And even say like, I'm going to go on a ramble now, but I was in India at the time, wasn't Muslim, but I was practicing Ramadan. And
how earlier would this have been to?
It's like 2018 sometime. Yeah. I think I took my shahada in 2019. I was in 2018. And I was walking down one of these streets and everyone was breaking their fast because in India, and especially in Bangalore, there was both Hindus and Muslims, and like they're all interacting. Like, you can see the Hindu people are shopping and the Muslim people are breaking their fast. And so I remember going and every Muslim vendor was just handing out food, jalebis, And I had a beard at that time. And I guess I've always sort of had a visible Islamic appearance just by how big my beard goes. So at least to the Islamophobes, they all think I'm Muslim. And so, I just remember seeing the kindness and like everyone's giving you water, everyone's stopping. And like, I just felt that like really deep connection to brotherhood there. And so that was one of those things that started to add up, It's all these little things to answer your question. Like there's millions of them. I'd say there's millions of them that would be that eureka moment. Yeah.
That's so beautiful. Thank you for sharing. And like, there's so much to unpack there. So much beauty there in that story and that experience.
Yeah, I think it's so fascinating that you say it's not one eureka moment, and it's not for so many of the important decisions of our life. Like, why did I decide to become a psychologist, or why did I decide to marry this person? Like, it's not just like this one thing that clicks sometimes, and I think sometimes that's what we're always waiting for. We're waiting for that click, right? But the click doesn't happen. It's about like the experiences, the journey that leads you to the place of ultimately making that decision. That I think is quite profound, as you say. I guess, interestingly enough, though, it sounds as though in some way or another, and especially as an Indian, I know that Muslims, Hindus, a lot of religions kind of live side by side with each other, right? So it sounds as though you were always aware of Islam in some particular way. Before the 6 years, or like 6 years ago in 2019, you took your shahada. But when did you start exploring like becoming Muslim? Was this during uni? Was this in like earlier in high school? When was that moment?
Yeah. I suppose before I started exploring Islam, I started exploring God, because I was born into a Christian family. So I always had that familiarity with God. And I'll keep this short because I know it's a mental health podcast, but the two sort of conjoin. But the experience I had with God was, we didn't grow up on the Trinity as Christians. We always grew up we were Unitarian Christians, so we believed that, there was no such thing as a Trinity. So one, it was a very lonely experience, because you're going to high school and primary school and you're talking about, hey, I'm a Christian. People are like, hey, I'm a Christian too. And you go to their church, you're like, what are you talking about? Like, this Trinity's wrong. And then, they start debating with you, and you're like fighting Christians at that point, But there was something implanted in me. It's probably my mum's, like, mashallah, my mum's an amazing human. She really implanted into me very early the concept of Tawheed as a Christian, by accident probably, but she did it.
Yeah.
She was just like, the Trinity is wrong. There's only one God, yeah? And so that was unshakable in me. But as you get older, and this is true for Muslims, non-Muslims, anyone going through life and religion and mental health, you start to come across things that may have doubts, that may shake you. You may feel like, why isn't this allowed? Why can't I do this? And, being a young person, you want to go off and do your own thing. And Christianity doesn't really have the mechanisms like Islam does to keep someone grounded. And what I mean by that is, like, as a Muslim, you're reminded to pray daily. As a Muslim, you have like a pillar of fasting in the year. As a Muslim, you look forward to going to Hajj or Umrah, inshallah. May allow us to do that. So then there's all these things that remind you, like, come back to God, come back to God. As a Christian, it's like, okay, go to church, sing your hymns, and pray to God. These are very beautiful things, but they're not grounding, or they don't resonate deeply within someone to make them not want to go to a bar, or to make them not want to, go, you know what, I'm not going to go to church today. Like, if most people would say, I'm not going to go to Friday prayer, people would like raise an eyebrow. You know what I mean? But it's quite common. Like, people would be, I'm not going to go to church today. I just don't feel like it. You know what I mean? Like, there's that concept there. So that's sort of what happened to me. And then I went on for a period of like, I think it was from late high school till probably about late uni, where I was just sort of waffling my life through, just seeking entertainment, seeking fun, the nuffs, that sort of stuff. And then you come across this point where, like, something has to be more. There has to be more to this. And I always believed in God. I just didn't know how to talk to him. That's what it was. Believe in God, didn't know how to talk to him. And I really wanted to talk to God. But one, you get distracted, and two, you just feel ashamed to go and talk to God. So then I started re-looking. I was like, okay, I can't live my life like this anymore. I've got to start finding God. Now I was like, how do I even know Christianity's right? Like, there was a real doubtful moment. So I looked at all the religions. I looked at I started off with Hinduism actually, because I was like, all right, I'm Indian. Funny enough, this is the point in my university time where I grew up in a very predominantly white neighborhood, white high school. Like I was an Oreo,
Yeah.
So yeah. So there's like brown on the outside, but
Yeah,
deep down
yeah.
I'm white, and still I have a lot of that. And so, you go along life and you figure out that on my days, like there's Indians or there's another part of the world and it's called the East. And I'm not actually a Western person. There's this whole other part. And that's from meeting people like Sri Lankans, it's for me from people like Indians, Pakistanis, Asians, becoming friends with them, and even meeting Arabs as well, like finding that worldview exists outside of yourself. Then, you also get into philosophy, getting all these different things. It's like, whoa, you're changing as a person. What then that triggered was, how do I even know Christianity is correct? This Western religion that I've been taught all my life, how do I know? So then I started looking into Hinduism, because I was like, if I'm going to be anything, I might as well be the religion of my people, which is Hinduism. And then that was just a mess, because it's like you unpack so much trauma that my own family had to go to when they converted from Hinduism to Christianity. So I was like, okay, not for me. You go to a softer part, which is probably Jainism and Sikhism, which okay, these are very beautiful things, but Sikhism is like, I'm not going to be a Sikh, because it's very there are Sikh converts, there are a lot of American Sikh converts, but it's like it's a beautiful religion, very insular. That's why it hasn't spread across the world as like the Abrahamic faiths have. That's no disrespect to Sikh people. They are very beautiful and kind people. That's just how it's patterned out.
Yeah.
The next part, now I won't list all religions, but basically Buddhism was the thing that really struck with me, because I'm like, okay, I like this. I really like this. This is very spiritual. It's very being at peace. But there was nothing stopping me from being Buddhist, but also going to like crazy raves and living a life of very pseudo decadence that I could come back and be like, I'm still Buddhist, So I was like, okay, Christianity has to be the calling, yeah? So I didn't even explore it at this point. So then I really got back into Christianity, like really. And maybe I was trying to force myself into it. Maybe I was trying to like push myself into it, but I was really good. To the point that I was even willing to accept the Trinity, because I'm just like, look, there's no way that I will be able to be an institutionalized Christian without somewhere accepting the Trinity along the way. Maybe deep down I'll believe that God is one, but I have to hang out with Trinitarians. Because there's no, where are you going to find a Unitarian person? Very rare. I didn't know any at the time. And so, long story short, Christianity was going, there was this weird relationship with it. And then I suppose that's when I started, for the first time, interacting with Muslims as friends.
Yeah.
Because before that, there's, stuff I feel like every person says, I'm not a racist, but at the time, growing up in a very white environment, I'm just like, okay, Muslims, they just want to kill me. They just want to beat me up. Look at what's gone on in the whole world. That's what you're fed. That's propaganda, right? And so it's not until you meet Muslims, you're like, okay, this guy's a pretty chill guy. This guy's this guy's normal, And it's like, maybe you do weird things in your home, but you're normal, weird things like you're praying and things that I don't understand. Like I couldn't understand how someone couldn't drink alcohol and someone could fast Ramadan. Now I'm Muslim, I'm just like, how can we not do that? And I get those questions all the time, and I laugh because I'm just like, I was you 10 years ago probably. So anyways, that's what was going through my head. And then as you meet Muslims, you realize, okay, these guys are on something different. They're on something. And I would start to try to prove Christianity to the Muslims. And this is where it's like, you're a Christian and a Muslim and you've ended up at a bar and you're discussing which religion's correct. But what's beautiful is there's so many people that I know, this is a bit of a sidetrack. It's very important for us, is what we would consider maybe Muslims who have sort of grown up in practicing spaces or places where we can be a bit more open about our faith, that there's a lot of people who are Muslim and they are in these environments, but they're doing dawa just the same as we're doing dawa. It just looks completely different. May Allah forgive them, Allah make it easy for them, Allah guide them. But a lot of converts that I've met, the first time they became Muslim was because they met someone at a rave, or they met a Muslim here or there, there's people, or they met, a Muslim at a workplace who's just has a different mannerism that they could account with. And that's their starting point. So I think it's very important in the work of dawah to recognize everyone's efforts as a collective ummah. And that's why that's the biggest thing, not be judgmental. That's I think that's why Allah says don't be judgmental.
Absolutely.
And so as you start to meet with them, interact with them, you start to have this faith crisis. You're like, oh my God, maybe I'm the guy who's wrong. And that's when you start to really deep it. And that was probably I was to put, if you were to really, interrogate me and say, what was the eureka moment?
Yeah.
That would be the eureka moment, like the challenging my own misconceptions about this.
Yeah.
And I remember, oh God, this was what it was. So I'm remembering things as we're talking. This is great. Because I didn't have any of this pre-rehearsed. This is live.
Beautiful.
We're just doing
That's what we
this.
love.
This is just yap. I remember sitting down with one of the Muslims, and I was really giving them a hard time about questioning their faith. I'm just like, oh, you guys can have multiple wives, you can do this, you can nonsense. Look at all your countries. Your country's all ruined. Like, how can you say this is the right religion? Look at the West. And I was really being a simp, but like, I knew what I was saying was wrong, but I was deliberately just trying to push him.
Yeah.
And so then he goes to me, he's just like, bro, have you heard what's happening? Do you even know who the Rohingya are? I'm like, who are the Rohingya? I had no idea. And he explained to me the Rohingya. I was just like, dear God, this is happening to them? Like, this is what's being allowed? And I'm like, okay, but that's just one group. And he's like, no, these are Muslims. I'm like, I didn't know they were Muslims. Like, that's so sad. And then he explained to me the Palestinians. And like, I always knew. So this is this weird thing about Christianity. In the story of David, who they're fighting are the Philistines, yeah? The way the Bible reads is that, okay, David killed Goliath. This is a person from Israel killing a Philistine. The Philistines were the ones attacking the Israelites at the time. And, whatever the truth is, but that's the conscious experience that one has growing up as a Christian. At least that's what I had growing up as a Christian. And so then you hear that, oh no, actually the people of Palestine and the people of Gaza experience such tremendous misery. And it's so sad. And that's the first time I heard that. And I was just like, what? But they're living fine. Like, they're governed by Israel. That's such a good, like, I was like, I wish I was governed by it. Like, because, there was this concept like Christians should move to Israel, yeah? Alhamdulillah, we didn't, we probably wouldn't have been able to anyways. But anyways, that moment when I realized, and also the Uyghur Muslims, I straight away saw in that one night my perspective shift about Muslims, and I'm like, my God. And then you read about like the thing that George Bush did in Iraq.
I guess what you're saying is like your worldview
shifted in that one conversation. And this guy, he was known to being quite a hothead, quite like joking, but he just said it to me in a very gentle way, and I felt so bad that night. I remember going back home. And then, my mum brought up Muslim stuff, and I said, Mum, do you know how badly they're being oppressed? Like, do you know, like, the level? And then she was shocked as well, because no one knows about this. That's why
it's not on the news.
Western media doesn't want to report it.
It does,
no,
exactly.
It doesn't
They're
care.
going to report their own
agenda.
They're going to report their own crimes, bro. Like,
yeah. And
absolutely.
what's very interesting, that is a very quick segue. Sometimes, and I'm not trying to shame Muslims at all, but like, we don't know what happened to the Irish. Because, again, they were a very oppressed people. We know about the potato famine, it's such a potato genocide. We didn't know the extent of what happened, that there's almost like 1 in 4 Irish people were just, when you have that human interaction, that's what I'm big on, is you start to understand each other's perspectives and stories. And that was my eureka moment, if I was to answer you with that one. That was what I say is a very significant moment. Perspective being shifted and going, okay, these guys have a case now, like a proper case as Islam. So I'm not even sure what the question was, Hana, so I apologize. Okay. But basically, what was that? What did that look like? It looked like, what did the first me coming to Islam look like? It looked like a whole bunch of challenging myself. It looked like a whole bunch of, having my views shattered and growth at the same time. It looked like me actually growing up as a person, an adult. But it made me realize like there's deeper things in life, because at the point I'm just like, look, I just want to buy a house. I just want to live in it. I just want to start a family. I just want to be very rich. I want a Mustang. I want all these material things. And then you start to realize, okay, those things, maybe they're just surface level. They're nice to have, but they don't matter. There's a deeper thing. It's like, when he says, when in the Matrix, when it's like, Neo, wake up. That was my moment. It's like waking up. And so you're starting to see this huge, beautiful thing called life unfolding in you. And then you start to understand that the beauty that you're seeing can actually be traced back to God. And that God is trying to tell you, come to Islam, because that's what I want you to be. And so then there's all this journey that happens. And then there's a 5-hour discussion on how we got to there, but we'll save that for another day, inshallah.
I think one of the reflections that I have from what you're saying is, I think about something I learnt recently and hopefully I'm saying and reciting this correctly, but the word insan, which refers to a human, also means to forget. And I guess that is so evident of the fact that inherently, as humans, we forget. And Islam is the act of always remembering and always reminding us of, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the ultimate creator. So I find that to be also the time where I feel as though that perspective shifted for me. Because I think convert or not, we all sometimes come to these moments individually as Muslims where we're like, I choose Islam, you know? And this is one of my favorite questions to ask my friends as well. I'm like, when do you feel like you've chosen Islam? And maybe it's a question, you know, the audience can take away for their own kind of group. But for me, I think similarly in the sense of remembering, or in the act of remembering Islam, or understanding how it understands us as humans, is what really shifted for me too.
Yeah. Nice.
That's a beautiful point.
Yeah.
I was going to say a lot of these, existential questions bring about, for a lot of people, a lot of internal turmoil. And how did you navigate that space?
I think I thrive in turmoil. I thrive in chaos. Like me and my wife, like she needs order. I need chaos to like really thrive.
I actually relate with that a lot.
Yeah. So it's one of those things. I love when I don't know something. I love when I'm really challenged. And it's very frustrating. Yeah, 100%. Like, you know, I would have moments where I'm in tears, where I'm ecstatically happy, where I'm angry beyond point. Because I'm trying to figure these things out. And before I became Muslim, didn't really have much support. I guess, you know, you have outlets, like, you know, you can go play sport with your friends, you can go on a walk, you can do a lot of passive things to take your mind off it. I remember as well thinking, this is just funny, because at the time I was actually clean shaven. I hated the concept of a beard, hated it. I was clean shaven. I remember thinking, if I do become Muslim, there's all these questions like, if I do become Muslim, I don't get to do this. If I do become Muslim, I have to be like this. And I was saying to myself, I will never be Muslim, because even though I wanted to be, I said, I will never be Muslim because I hate the beard. I will never grow a beard. Fast forward like 6 years, like this is a beard, you know?
It's a long, luscious beard.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I take pride in it.
Uncovering a lot of these truths and having these massive perspective shifts. Every Muslim goes through this when they find Islam for themselves. But I can't imagine what it's like to find Islam from a completely different place. That must have brought about a lot of challenges, mental health challenges.
Yeah, 100%. So when you, like, there's one thing that a lot of people say is like, oh, you know, I'm they're born Muslims and say, I'm a revert myself because I had to choose this and things. It's like, no, alhamdulillah. It's like, you know, you probably did have that opening and that same walk through your journey. But in most cases, I say most as there are outliers here, most born Muslims are supported through that process. So, you know, at worst, if a person who comes from, like, say, a non-practicing or secular family, if they start praying, they're going to be in a state where maybe at worst their parents are upset and they're like, why are you wasting time in the masjid? At best, their parents will be like, oh, good, you know, you're praying, good job, you know? Whereas as a convert's point of view, at best, yeah, you might get supportive parents but they don't understand. They'll be like, okay, this kid's doing something weird, but I'm going to support them. And those are beautiful. No, mashallah. And all parents are lovely. Like, parents are just doing life for the first time. That's what I think you got to, like, everyone's got to realize. And I know so many converts who face this, you know, like a lot of, especially from Orthodox backgrounds, their parents question, like, am I a bad parent now? That's a huge thing for a kid to go through, for a, you know, whatever age you are. That's a huge thing for a child to think, oh no, I've disappointed my parent. Yeah, especially when you come from traditional, like,
I was going to say, especially when you're coming from like an Indian family as well.
Yeah,
like,
or even
filial
just, like,
piety is such a big, strong concept, and I think also for the parents, like, it's so important for them to take on the values or give the children the values that they grow up with, because that's like a testament to
like
how well they're parented.
Yeah, exactly. So now, that's also there for, like, Serbians, Greeks, Croatians, a lot of the Orthodox background people, especially like Greeks. I mean, they have to deal with the whole Turkish thing. It's like like, I know people who are from Greek backgrounds. They're like, their father's like, what has happened? Like, because like now they've got to go explain to their community, my kid's Muslim. You know, that's very tough for them.
That's the enemy, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's like all, like, you know, supposed enemy. But yeah, that's the history was like that. But the so that's the mental health outload, is that there's not support. Yeah. So as you're going through all these things and these feelings, and other than maybe some Muslim friends, you know, and even then, it's like, you know, you coming to me, say, with depression, I can maybe understand where you're coming to, or I can maybe get to a certain point on that walk with you, but I don't know the full story, because I have never been depressed, or, like, you know, I don't have that on my plate. Yeah, but you have that. You coming to with schizophrenia, any other type of mental health issue, there's no, and that's why you have psychologists, you have psychiatrists, you have OTs, people who can even just active listening. That's a huge thing. Yeah, not a lot of people know how to do active listening. So you might, and a lot of the time these people, these reverts, have taken shahada with a masjid that might not be a well-known masjid, and it's only the sheikh they're talking to. That sheikh may be like their dad's age, doesn't know how to connect with them. So doesn't know how to active listen. They're going to might say, have sabr. That's the worst thing they can say. But then alhamdulillah, I think the community has really grown. Like now you see, mashallah, Sheikh Abdurrahman Zika does free counseling sessions. There's a lot, like 6 degrees, mashallah. You guys have the Great Helping Hands initiative. So that all exists now. Still a long way to go. But yeah, that's the thing. Like there's a lot of, I think, sadness that many converts hold because they can't go to their parents. They can't go to loved ones or support networks that were once there to say, I need help. And then maybe they can't go to their so their non-Muslim friends or their friends that they're growing up with, because their friends are like, yeah, what are you doing? I mean, the first time I told one of my good friends, he saw me, the burger came out with bacon. He saw me take out the bacon. Yeah. And he goes, are you Muslim now? Did you convert? I'm like, yeah. He couldn't get over it. He was just like, why did you do this? Have the bacon, man. The bacon's so good. Like, so I'm just like, man, I'm going through this thing where like my mum's already giving it to me. Now you tell me about bacon. I don't care about the bacon, so like that's all the stuff exists. And alhamdulillah, for me, I did have, like very early on, I had good friends, like a lot of good friends. I could go to, but there's that thing, these guys are randoms at that point, If in the first week of my journey, I'm not going to go unload them and telling how I feel really bad, I feel really sad about this. I didn't have that trust with them yet. Probably took like 6 months, 3 months to get there before I started opening up to them. But in that 6 to 3 months, man, I was feeling very down.
Super isolating, man.
But this is the beautiful part, and I will say this as a hopeful statement, is that in this melody of emotions and all that, where you're very lonely, there's Sheikh Musab Penfound told me this, and it stayed with me all my life. You're in a state where the world is quietening on you. Things are very like bleak or very alone, but that's literally like the wad-duha moment. You know what I mean? It's like you're in isolation, but God wants you just to Himself. Allah just wants you to build that one-on-one relationship, because at that time, man, I do not make nearly as much dua as I did back then. I always asked Allah, make me make more dua like I did back then without the hardship. I don't want the hardship, but just let me make more dua. But that's one of those things, is that you really lean on Allah there, and you're forced to lean on Allah. And that's one of the greatest mental resilience I was able to sort of work through, is that real tawakkul on Allah. Like, you got no one else to go to, so you've got to go to Allah, yeah? So I say Allah starts to put mechanisms in your place. Like, in summary, yes, there is a very lonely period. Seek Allah in those lonely periods. But yeah, we as a Muslim community, we can unpack this later. We really need to do more around that space. Yeah.
No, that's beautiful, subhanAllah, that you get to get a period at the inception of your, faith, and as you're getting into this whole Islam thing where it's just you and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and you can fall back on that as you go through life, So that's very, very beautiful. That's very, very beautiful.
And I'm sure like there's some cognitive dissonance as well between, finding the thing that you feel like is the truth, and then also having to, in some ways, defend yourself against the very people you love from it. Did you ever find that there was that kind of battle between?
Yeah, 100%.
But
I think that's where there's a pertinent advice to like speak to, like, there's the Surah, I hope I don't get this wrong, Surah Maryam, where Ibrahim alayhi salam is speaking softly to his father, despite his father not believing in and this is like pure escalation. This is like his father wants him out, still speaking softly. That's one of the biggest the beauties of the Quran, telling new Muslims, speak softly. Because if you try to and it goes back to this, your parents are just dealing with their trauma, they're going through a whole mental health crisis. Like, imagine if, Allah protect, but imagine if one of our future kids or a third said to your parent, like, hey, I'm a Christian now. Of course a Muslim parent's going to freak out of that, But, that's the thing. And the parent likely doesn't have supports that they can go to as well in most cases. I think I would love to see this is a world where a person takes shahada and both the parent and the child or the spouse or whoever it is are brought along on that journey. And I have some good stories about how that's happened organically, but that would be amazing. And I guess that's what eventually Convert Collective would like to work to.
Inshallah.
But there's a lot of organizations like Benevolence, mashallah, they do a lot of good work in this space. There's a lot of organic people just working towards this.
Yeah.
Inshallah, but we need to try to get on a Australia-wide thing where not only converts are supported, but their parents, their spouses, their partners, whoever is also supporting that journey.
That's actually such a good point. And I feel like, we focus on the convert themselves and then forget about sometimes the things around them.
I want to touch just on that. I think it's probably maybe a question you might have already had in your pocket guide, but we focus on the Shahada point so much that we forget sometimes there's the convert experience and what's happening around that convert as well. Like this all point. So we just zoom in. And the Shahada is one of the most beautiful things, but I think sometimes as a community we might get a bit too excited at just that one point.
Yeah.
When it's
and we'll definitely bring that up in a second. I think before we kind of move on to the perspective of, I guess, other converts and like the community and how we can support them better, I did want to ask, and I feel myself a lot of the time, the pressure to be a perfect Muslim, right? And I know that there must be such a big pressure on converts to feel like they have to be the perfect Muslim straight out of the gate. Was that ever experience that you felt like you had?
I think it's hard to say because I think naturally back then, my personality was very people-pleasing. I think I went through a phase where I wasn't people-pleasing. Then I became people-pleasing as I became Muslim because I wanted to do it right. And so I wanted to not go to people with problems. And that was also something that I've grown from. Like, just go to people with your problems. That's the easiest way. If you try to pretend everything's okay, they probably will think everything's okay. And of course, there's all this trust in the back end. Like, do you actually trust the person you're going to for help, et cetera, et cetera. But what I felt was that I had to be the perfect Muslim because I've chosen this. It's like why would you choose something that you're not going to be fully with?
Amazing at, yeah.
So, and I had this competitive edge to myself and it wasn't sustainable. Alhamdulillah, I think Allah knows my personality and he just made it easy for me to maintain that outlook by providing me very good friends. And look, my experience, alhamdulillah, was very, very beautiful because of the friends Allah gave me along the way. If I didn't have those friends, I would have burnt out. I would have definitely been someone who would not have maintained what I maintained. But at the same time, as you're sort of, because it's very interesting, taking the Shahada, your worldview is flipped in one moment. Maybe it's building up to that moment, but at that point it's flipped.
Confirmed at that point,
it's flipped. And you're dabbling in this. Islam's a very beautiful religion with a lot of duality there, How can Allah, love you, but also like how can there be heaven and hell? You know what I mean? It's very beautiful when you're really deep down why that exists. And the same thing, how can you be sad but happy at the same time?
Yeah.
And to answer your question succinctly, I guess, yes. So what was your question? I just realized
the pressure to be perfect.
Pressure to be perfect. Sorry, I was like to answer your question succinctly. I'm like I need to know. The pressure to be perfect existed for me. Not sure if it existed for everyone, but it existed for me when it really didn't have to. And I think for a lot of times, in the 6 years I've been Muslim, I've really grown up and I've really seen like for me now, probably unsolicited, but if I see new Muslims or any Muslim praying in a way that's not praying, it's okay, just let them do their thing. Someone else will probably pick them up on their journey who's more qualified than me. If a person is maybe, there was one revert guy, Masha. He's a very beautiful guy, brother. He's into music, his life is all about music, So he's happily talking to all these Muslims in a room about how music and how it all works and all this stuff. I can just see the boys' faces and they're just they want to say that it's haram. And I say to them, guys, whatever you do not tell this guy that music is haram. Whatever you do. Because there's a bigger conversation around that. But if you say it to this chap, this particular guy is
his life.
This is his life. This is actually his business. It will break him and it'll cause such turmoil on him. And this guy is a very sensitive guy. You think Ramsey's sensitive? Mashallah. This guy was next level sensitive. If you said to him, if you yelled at him in a hard voice, he'd break away. So it's really about understanding people.
And meeting them where they are.
There's a beautiful saying that Talif have. So it's coined by Imam Zaid Shakir. It was utilized a lot by Osama Khanan, who was one of the founders of Talif. And they said, come as you are to Islam as it is. And that is so powerful.
I love that.
Yeah,
I love that
because
so much.
yeah, because it's like it's not asking for perfection. Islam never asks you perfection. Like we see people all through Islamic history who are not perfect.
Not at all.
Not perfect, you know.
Not supposed to be perfect.
You're not supposed to be. You're just supposed to do
That's
it
the
and try
conundrum
your
of
best.
us being humans and being Muslims.
Yeah, exactly. And even in people trying to seek that perfection, you're probably imperfect at it.
Absolutely.
And people trying to advise towards perfection, that is probably the greatest imperfection.
Yeah.
So yeah, it does exist. But yeah, just kun anta, be yourself. That was the best advice I ever got. Kun anta. Just be yourself.
I love that. My mum says that a lot, especially when we were young and struggling with, identity as Muslims. She told us all the time, and she still tells me and my sisters, like, just come as you are, whatever it might be. Hijab, no hijab, like prayer, no prayer, whatever it be, just come as you are. And I think like that's definitely something I, again, really appreciate.
Yeah.
Josh, I think it's one thing to be a convert and find Islam, but it's also another thing to be involved in the space that you are, especially with Convert Collective. What was the turning point, or what made you feel as though there need to be something more for the converts in Melbourne?
I'll tie this in with the last question, and that was, the whole be as you are, do that. Because at the end of the day, we're all trying our best, and you don't really know what someone's going through. Like someone might be just on the brink of wanting to leave Islam because they've been mistreated left, right, center, or they've just not had a good experience with it, born Muslim or convert. And someone might be on this beautiful, beautiful journey, like literally like a flower growing into blossom, and you're going to come and cut that, right? Well, words can cut that, or actions can cut that, which you don't want either. So people's tarbiyah and nature are very, sensitive things that need to be protected and looked after. And, what right does anyone have? And you don't know what anyone is going through. That's why Allah, mental health is such a deep topic. No one knows what anyone's going through. You might have that person, they might be praying salah very quickly or very, because they've got to get back to a single parent household to help. They might be praying because, they just cannot hold it in. They just need to go cry in the corner, because that's their release. Yeah. Who knows? So you got to be very soft with people, and no one should ever dare judge someone's mental health or dare judge someone's practice in a way that's very egotistic and cuts them. So that's one of them. And to tie that point to this question here is that I saw that no one deliberately does that. And I genuinely believe, I think only odd people try to genuinely do that. But what I found is that through having very little support for the convert experience post-shahada, that was inevitably happening. The Muslim community is a very generous community. It's a very kind community. It's a very open community. But just because, we Muslims have grown up in a certain way, they've adopted certain mannerisms, they've been raised a certain way, and that's also an experience from coming from a colonized point of view, where it's we've got parents who've come from the eastern lands into a new land, and their mode is their mode's not I'm going to attend tafsir class. Their mode is I'm just going to survive in this country. So all of a sudden they're surviving, the kids are trying to survive, keep head above water, go into identity crisis, and those are the problems the masjids are trying to solve. And then you've got reverts at the bottom who are coming, and that's not the issues that solve for them. So really what I saw was, if this is the convert experience here, and this is the Muslim community, so I know I'm banging on the table, but this is the Muslim community, what's happening is the converts are on the periphery. Yeah. When I spoke to Sheikh Abdul Wali Noor on this, he said that's actually what needs to happen. The converts need to be in the middle. There needs to be a periphery around them to protect them. Like
So
emperor
true.
penguins?
Yeah.
They all share the load when they're in the icy cold, so we need to share the load.
Protect that
Yeah,
pack.
protect the pack.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. Because I found that wasn't happening at a level that it needed to happen. You have great organizations like Benevolence. A lot of masjids do iftars, that sort of stuff. But there was nothing that talks about for converts to actually unpack and get together and talk about, hey, how do we relate Surah Maryam? We just did a sort of Taraweeh together program, this one relating Surah Maryam to relationships with your family, because Ramadan's tough. So how do you relate? What is Surah Maryam trying to teach you about your family? You know what I mean? How is it trying to teach you to be good to your parents?
Yeah.
How is it trying to teach you to have that interaction with your parents? I won't go into the tafsir here, but you have, the story of a single mother in some senses, like Maryam as-salam. She's dealing with Isa as-salam being her child, single parent household. You have Zachariah and his wife want to have a child. They end up miraculously having a child. Then you have a son who is being kicked out of his home. There's multiple lessons there. No one was ever going through that depth. And I feel like that's because converts weren't involved in the decision-making process in all aspects. Yeah?
Absolutely, yeah.
That's something that Convert Collective, that's what I really want to see. I wanted to see a place where converts can just come as they are. It's a center for them. It's a place that they can come be like, I don't care if if you have tattoos on your face, if you still drink alcohol, whatever you're going through, just come. Just come, eat a meal with us and listen to the topic at hand. Make some friends. And subhanAllah, the things I have seen change in people with that mentality is honestly, I've seen some beautiful things, mashallah. People really finding their space, people then getting involved and helping us in that journey as well. Now they're like participants, all this amazing stuff. And even people who live too far away to come to convert, even the fact that I can connect them to other converts or to connect them to other spaces, and you see them then engage in a beautiful journey, right? That is something to me that I felt like I didn't see enough, not because of the lack of effort on Muslims. I really want to stress that the Muslim community really does try. It's just that if you have a list of all the things we need to fix in the ummah, that list will probably go out that door. Yeah. And that's just for born Muslims. Yeah. Add all of that to converts, but also add all these other deeper layers to them, that list will go to the end of the street. You know what I mean? And as an ummah, we've gone through a lot. We can't tick those lists off here. So everyone has to get involved and form something or be part of something. And what I saw was, I used to volunteer at a lot of other dawa organizations, but what I found was I couldn't put the flavor of Convert Collective into, I couldn't see that. So I was like, all right, I'm going to add a flavor to the mix, and that's what this is going to be. That was with consultation with some shayukh. That was with, consultation with some shura. It took a while to get there because we just started off very, very small. We started off making gift packs. That was our first thing. Yeah. Now we do events and he's trying to make these community gatherings. Inshallah, we've got some more. The work is not nearly yet done. There's a lot of work to do. We are still very grassroots, but that's what I saw. I saw there was that little gap that needed to be filled because,
It's beautiful, man. That's so, so beautiful. Genuinely.
It's all from Allah as well. I really, and also something that I really need to correct. There's actually 3 other people at Convert Collective who are the founders. Allah bless them. And now there's a very beautiful, sincere team that's part of that. My wife is part of that. I would not be able to do what I do without her. I would not be able to do what I do without the 8 other people involved at Convert Collective. They are what make it. Mashallah. I always say if it was up to me, Convective, we'd probably be sitting out in the gutter having biryani with a Tupperware container. That's what we'd be doing. But mashallah, it's really important to have a core team and that team who believes in that vision. So that's something, that was what I'd say is the biggest thing I love about Convective, that team.
Listen, the team always carries, especially in community dawa organizations. You can't do it alone. You genuinely can't without the support of the ummah, without the support of those amazing members of your team. And yeah, absolutely. I've only seen maybe a fraction of what you guys do in behind the scenes, and subhanallah, I can only imagine the effort it takes to put all of that together.
And
so may Allah reward
you guys
for doing all of that.
Allah reward
that
6 degrees as well. You guys are doing great.
Inshallah.
Sometimes as a community, the etiquettes and akhlaq of da'wah and the etiquettes of akhlaq of advising someone can be lost upon us. And, Islam is Islam. And of course, that doesn't change for everyone or anyone. But, we're all on our own journey. It reminds me of a beautiful hadith that my roommate told me about basically, I'm trying to remember most of it, but we can put it in the comments maybe. But there were few people going on a caravan ride or something like that. And the Prophet was accompanying them. And this man basically saw a group of women sitting outside and there was a little fire or something like that. And, he saw the women, and one of his vices, he was a recent, I think someone that recently joined Islam, and one of his vices was women and something he struggled with. So he went inside into his tent, put on his thawb, put on a fragrance, walked outside and sat with women. And
it's the one where he dressed as a woman or something. I think.
I don't know. I haven't heard that.
Okay, no.
I haven't heard that hadith. Yeah, but so he does that, and then the Prophet comes out, and he sees them, and so the man gets embarrassed, right? And the Prophet asks him, what are you doing? You're sitting. With the woman. He's like, I just lost my camel, and I'm not sure where it was. So I was asking the ladies about where the camel was and stuff. The Prophet was like to him, okay. So the Prophet goes, and then the Prophet comes back later and asks him, where's your camel, right? Did you find your camel? And he goes to the Prophet, no, I haven't been able to find the camel. I'm not sure where it is. I'll keep looking, right? And so this goes on for a few days for I think the whole trip. And we'll put the hadith in the comments, but it goes on for a few days. And the guy feels so much shame every time the Prophet asks. He feels so bad. The Prophet asked me, was kind of like, obviously I'm lying about this. And they get back to Medina, and he decides, I'm going to leave. I'm just not going to speak to the Prophet at all.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'm not going to confront the Prophet ever again. And that's it. And then after a while, he comes to sense. He comes back and he's like, look, the Prophet's not in the mosque. I'll quickly pray, and then I'll leave. So he goes in, quickly prays, and while he's praying, the Prophet comes out of his room. And while he's praying, the man's praying, the Prophet prays 2 rakat, right? And then the Prophet finishes and sits next to the man. And so the man extends his prayer. He extends his prayer. And then the Prophet ﷺ speaks to him, and he says, while he's praying, he goes to him, extend your prayer as much as you like. I'm not going away. He finishes his prayer. He says, Assalamu alaikum, right? And then he looks at the Prophet, and the Prophet asks him, did you find your camel? And obviously the man hasn't found his camel. He decides, I've got to tell the Prophet. And he's so stressed about it. And he tells the Prophet, look, I lied, and there was no camel, and X, Y, Z. And the Prophet ﷺ, essentially the crux of the story is he smiles at him, forgives him, and that's it. And I think when you compare that and the prophetic model and the beauty of the Prophet's character ﷺ to how sometimes we go about things, massive gap.
Yeah.
I'm sure you have many stories, many stories of people giving you a brotherly nasiha that wasn't very brotherly.
It wasn't very brotherly. I like that name, brotherly, for an organization. It's just sorry to sidetrack. Yeah. So the question is how do we give nasiha? What's the etiquette? Yeah. Especially for converts as well. I just want to add a couple of points to what you're saying. That's actually a very, very nice hadith, actually, mashallah. The point was that it's funny with converts, yeah? It's that's a new Muslim that's being referenced in the story. Of course he knows maybe, you shouldn't be sitting with a group of women, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But he's probably not used to that, right? There's a lot of things that I want to talk about. There's a lot of times when converts just aren't used to certain things. Like Fajr being a big one. So like some converts, oh my days, I know this guy, mashallah, he's a beast. This guy, when he learnt about prayer times at Fajr, he thought you have to pray on the dot. He didn't realize there's a window. He thought, no, if Fajr's at 4:56 a.m., I'm praying at 4:50. So he used to go at runs. This guy used to go for runs around Geelong in the morning, even before, and when everyone's sleeping, this guy's Aussie guy, going around runs. As he's running, he's saying, La ilaha illallah, la ilaha illallah. There's another runner coming behind him. And he goes, I like that mantra. He starts saying, La ilaha illallah. Yeah?
Wow.
Yeah, this is a story. This is a real story. So he starts saying, La ilaha illallah. And this guy just stops, sees his alarm clock goes off, stops and prays. Bang on where he is. Just in the grass, yeah? It's in Geelong. The runner's like, what are you doing? And then he comes back and he says, okay. And then this guy, very intense personality, beautiful brother, but intense personality. He just goes, I'm meeting with my Lord. That's what he says to this other one. And then the guy says, so what are you saying? And he explains, he says, so basically he was saying, I'm a Muslim. He started explaining. So he's giving dawa. So when most Muslims are sleeping, this guy's around running.
Where's David Goggins if he converted to
Yeah,
Islam?
Literally he is, yeah. And so that's an example of how converts sometimes may not know what the standard practice is. That's a funny lightbeat example. But for me, man, there was a time when, not in that similar sense, but there's also a bit of maybe you're scared about advertising your Muslim identity. You're going through that transition. When I first took Shahada, I started a new job, alhamdulillah, and I didn't tell that boss that I was Muslim. Biggest regret. Because where I used to go pray was in the cleaner's cupboard. Yeah, because I was hiding from people.
Yeah.
I'd put my little rain jacket down and I'd pray in the thing. Now there's rat droppings there, there's rat poison. And I'm praying, so I'm like this. The same thing. Right? The manager of the building opens the door and he sees me just go like this. And I think it's at the point where I'm going like that. I go on I go onto Ruku.
Going into
And so
Ruku.
he's just like, dear God, what's happening? So immediately I felt so shocked and so ashamed of this guy catching me praying. I got out and I say to him hey man, I was just doing stretches. And he goes I said something dumb like that, something stretches, yeah? And then he goes, oh, yeah, okay, yeah. Do you just want to do them outside next time? Or what's going on? And he started, I'm just like, oh man, I wish I hadn't said to do stretches. And at that point, so this is the office manager who's opened the door. My boss walks past and sees me here in the cleaner's cupboard discussing with the office manager
what you've been doing.
what I've been doing in the cupboard, stretching apparently. And then he hears stretches. He goes, Josh, why are you here? Like this was a good 10-minute walk away from my desk. So it's very peculiar to the normal person. What is this guy doing in a cupboard stretching?
Yeah.
And his jacket's on the ground as well, And the office manager and the project manager both going what's going on, Josh, And at that point, I was just like, this is too deep. This is way too deep. I just remember saying to my boss, look,
I would have quit my job.
I would have run away.
I just started the job. Job. So they see this weirdo doing this. And I said, look, guys, sorry. Look, I was a bit embarrassed, but I was praying. And then just me admitting hey, I'm praying. My boss was just like, oh, Josh, just tell me they've got so many Muslims in the office. I didn't know there were Muslims. He's like, Josh, there's so many Muslims. Just they've got a prayer space. We can go. We can get you one, And this guy, he goes, don't pray in this cupboard because there's rat droppings and all this thing. I'll just make, and because he's the office manager, he made a new prayer space for us. Right. So it's just it's one of those things. I think sometimes people's just a person thing. We get embarrassed just to say what we want to say, but we end up in a deeper hole. By
so
saying,
relatable.
Where's your camel, bro? You know what I mean? My camel. Anyway, so that's as you were saying, that's what was going through my mind. So to answer your question, what's the etiquette? Sorry to do that massive
No.
Well,
there was no question per se. I feel like you would have experienced a lot of, and you would have a lot of stories of people being like, bro, here's some advice.
So there's a thing called flooding. So you get straight away as a new Muslim, you've got so much topics already going to head, and then you get boom with another one, And it's usually from unsolicited people who are maybe sort of learning their religion at the same time. Maybe you haven't fully learned it.
TikTok Islam.
Yeah, and you're getting these opinions that you're like, what? I can't do this. I can't do that. I can do this. What are we talking about? It's very hard. I think especially because you end up confusing new Muslims more than you end up helping them. I think the best thing you can do is just say hey, bro, maybe go talk to a sheikh about that. And 9 times out of 10, converts are pretty proactive. They've probably talked to someone they know. They've probably got a method. There's some people who don't know about madhabs. And so the convert might be learning how to pray a certain way. You have this person go up to them and be that's how you pray. But it's I remember one time I was making wudu. And there's so many people who just blast the tap going, So I just thought, okay, tap water. I wasn't considerate about this, And this guy comes up to me and just gives me that hadith about wasting water. And I felt so bad, man. I was like, it's so bad. I'm seeing all these Muslims just drain water. But he didn't give it to them. He gave it to me. Because I'm this new convert, piercings in my ears. And then my rescuer, he was the guy who was teaching me Islam. He comes over, he's just like, bro, don't listen to this guy. And he just told this guy off, don't give him a hard time. He's literally 6 days into his Islam. Let him use the water, it all gets recycled anyway. So, so, but now I don't use that much water. But anyways,
it's okay, we forgive you, Josh, for the water.
See, I'm that insecure about the incident,
No, it's okay. I can imagine, bro.
Those are those kind of advices. And I think it comes back to this. You're talking about what it's like having that mental load as a new Muslim. You're going through that. And so it's just you might be carrying a lot of mental strain or a lot of stress. Maybe the average person carries 20% stress. I don't know, I'm just quoting a number. As a new Muslim, that might have increased. So what you were normally balancing your stress load with has now, instead of carrying 20% stress, you might be carrying 30%, 40% just because of other stuff going on, with parents, new things that what you may have had the resilience before Islam that say if someone said a mean dig at you, you may be like, oh, that's okay.
Yeah.
Now if they say this mean dig at you or if they give you unsolicited advice or they make you feel a bit low about yourself, that can actually break a person. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So it's very important for just people to know that what other people are going through. And I wanted just to say one small hadith. That is my favorite hadith. It's the hadith about Abu Huraira and he's hungry. So Abu Huraira, mashallah, very knowledgeable Sahaba. He goes up to Omar radiallahu anhu and he asks him this very basic question. Omar replies, the reason he's asking them this question is because he wants them to notice the look of hunger on his face because he's so hungry. So but he doesn't want to beg. So he's just asking them this question and he's hoping that they notice how hungry he is and they offer him food. So Omar just answers the question, walks off. Abu Bakr, same thing, answer the question. And this is a very basic question. I don't know what the question, can't recall, but there was a very basic question. Abu Hurairah, he goes to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he asks the same question. The Prophet doesn't even answer, gives him food, invites him to eat. There's a level of empathy there. There's a level of seeing what someone's going through, understanding what they're actually asking, looking deeper than what it is. I believe a believer's one of the things I really think that Muslims should be doing is surveying their surroundings, whether you go into a wedding, a room, a Jummah khutbah, whatever. survey the room. Who's sitting by themselves? Who's alone? Who's maybe looking like they're having a time? How can we bring felicity then? That's how you bring the ummah together, So that's how you bring a community together. And so this is what the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ did to Abu Hurairah. Why I love that is that a lot of times that converts might be going through something, they won't say it. Or just Muslims as well, like just Muslims in general, born and convert, they might be going through something. But if you want for yourself, you should also want for your brother. So you should look at them and say, okay, look, I can see you're going through something. Yeah. Maybe your body language is off. Maybe you're not quite involved. Maybe you're sitting in the corner. Why? Yeah. Like I have this really, it's low-key toxic, but the moment I see what I think is a convert in a public space, I would just go up to them and introduce myself to them. Like it to the point where like my friends or whoever I'm seeing with, sometimes even my wife, they're like, please don't do this, please don't do this. What are you doing? Please don't do this. I will happily beeline to them and just be like, hey, just a weird question. Are you a convert to Islam? And you build, you get to know them. Yeah. Like there was one guy I talked to at this one restaurant. I met him at the masjid like 6 days later. And he was like, oh, bro, it's you. And you build that connection. And then slowly, they want to start talking to you. They want to start, getting to know you. And you build that connection. That's how it happens, You notice the hunger in people's eyes and what the question they're asking. And I think the ummah will go a long way that way. Absolutely. Or people will just go a long way. Yeah.
For sure. It's missing. It's missing. And I think in our communities, in our circles, that emotional intelligence. Take a break, take a minute, have a look at someone's face, their mannerisms. And even if you can't detect anything, your adab should always still be there.
And that's the answer to, I guess, that's my response, is there's that emotional intelligence, that empathy, and that social mannerism. Like, would you want this to be said to you?
Absolutely.
Would you feel like it was good? Is it a normal thing you say? Like, would you say this to another Muslim? So just don't say it to a new Muslim. That's the thing. Biggest things are like, what's your Muslim name? It's just like, my name is like chill, those type of things.
Yeah. I think it's interesting what you're saying, because I think I agree with you. We can be really insular in the way that we perceive people, right? It's like sometimes it's me, and even within the friendships that we have and the community that we have, we can be really insular in who's involved and who's allowed to be a part of our group. Sometimes I feel as though
true.
That experience happened. But I also think on a larger note, and I like the fact that you made that or you spoke about that anecdote about going up to people and asking whether they're converts or not. And of course, if it's different.
There's like there's an emotional tension. I don't just go, you're a convert.
Of course, no. But and of course, like there's a reason you're a convert yourself. There's that kind of like understanding between you two. But on a broader note, just asking the question, right, I think is the adab that people lose, right? Are you in a position to take on this advice that I want to impart on you? Like, are you feeling okay? Where are you at right now? I feel like we don't ask those questions enough before we kind of jump into whatever well-intentioned advice or well-intentioned hadith we have, if that makes sense.
People will ask for advice when they want it.
There's actually a really cool thing. Muhammad Rima, he was always having a chat, and he told me this one beautiful piece of advice. Like, when anyone's talking to you, just ask them, do you want me to listen? Do you want me to give advice? Do you want me just to be there as a brother or like whatever your role is? Just use what do you want me to do? And I think for men, that is such a good question to ask, because we tend to be solutions-based. We just go, that's a solution, that's the case. And also when it comes to me running off to like random converts, I think like I never try to give advice at all. I just want to get to know them. I just want to be like, hey man, what's your name? And that's just my personality. I'm very direct. I don't care what people think about me. If I make a fool of myself, I make a fool of myself. I've gone up to Muslims and they're like, bro, I'm Bosnian. And I'll be like, okay, tell me about Bosnia. Like, let's talk, like I'll still have that conversation with them. At worst, people think you're weird. At best, you make a connection.
Beautiful.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I love that.
Definitely.
You've mentioned, Josh, that the point of converts taking the shahada can actually be one of the hardest. Can we unpack that a little bit and why you feel that way or make that statement?
I think that was my experience mostly, because the masjid I took the shahada at, it was a beautiful moment for me internally. But then straight away out the gate, I'm getting questions like, the guys are like, Abdullah would be a good name for you. You want to be named Abdullah? I think Abdullah would be a good name. I'm just like, bro, I've never heard the word Abdullah. What does that mean? No one even said that the beauty of the name Abdullah, like the slave of Allah. It's just a beautiful name. I'm like, man, I'm like already Muslim. What more do you want from me,
Yeah.
I remember, this is so cringe. I remember I just had to say something, because they're like literally insisting, what name do you want? I'm just like, I didn't know this was part of the deal. There's an Avatar character. I don't know if you watch Avatar, Legend of Korra.
Yeah.
His name's Zahir. That was the only Arabic name that I thought sounded cool. I'm just like, call me Zahir. You know, it's just like, what a cringe moment. And and the guy's like, Zahir? Okay, Zahir. Zain. And so somewhere in some masjid, people might know me as Zain. I have no idea. But the thing is, I think that's why it was the hardest part for me. And knowing that I had to go back to my family at that night and just like hide the fact that I was Muslim, because there's no way I was telling. There's no way. That's why it was hard for me. For some people, it's such a beautiful experience. It just really depends, I think. And look, I've seen it done in a good way. I've seen it done in a bad way. Like sometimes you see it and like the convert's brought to the front. There was one that I saw online, and this sister, she's got to take shahada in front of like a whole Jummah congregation. I'm just like, what? And you can tell her body language is like, what's going on here, you know? And then there's ones where, there's a New Beginnings one that was so beautiful. They took the person to the back. They were with their friends and family. It was a very intimate thing. Like, you know, I thought that was such a beautiful moment. Yeah. And when they filmed it, and this is another thing that I really don't like. It's like, I personally don't like it. Maybe it gives people a mind boost. Like when converts got to shut, everyone's got the camera.
Yeah.
But the way the New Beginnings crowd did it, they didn't get the camera out. They recorded the person helping the other person take the shahada, and that was it. I thought that was beautiful. Respect the person's moment, respect their privacy. I will say there is a beauty though, because doing a Jummah, especially as a male, taking shahada in front of a Jummah, you get all these hugs. You get this notice that you're part of a family, part of a brotherhood. The hard thing is, I think, unpacking that, okay, the next day you're not going to get that reaction. You walk into the masjid, maybe 6 people will say hello to you. You walk into the masjid, people might not even say salam alaikum to you. They may not, you know, that's a real thing. And I remember the first time, because I thought everyone says salam alaikum. It's actually a pet peeve of mine when people don't. Or like, when people write AAA or AOA, I'm just like, bro, just say it properly, So anyways, sorry, it's my pet peeve, I shouldn't say it. Right. I'm sure we're all guilty of it. But anyways, that's probably what I mean by it's the hardest. That's the hard part. That was the hard part for me. For some people, mashallah, they've got a thicker skin. They wouldn't find it hard. For other people, maybe they do find it hard. It's just very subjective.
I can't imagine that being easy at all, to be honest. You know, even like growing up Muslim, sometimes the mosque environment can be difficult. Of course, a lot of the time it isn't. But when you walk in and no one's smiling and no one's saying something, like when no one's upholding any of our values, like what kind of...
Everyone knows what's going on, like what's happening, and you might not have ever been there for like Isha or Fajr or like Tarawih before.
The first Jummah I ever went to, I had no idea where to pray Jummah. So there's these moments, you can call them like Jummah moments, Fajr moment, whatever. Like there's only like there's unwritten rules that when you Google like say what is the morning prayer, people say fasting. This is the big one. People say like what you fast from sun up to sundown. Okay, that means the sun is up. So my first Ramadan, I was fasting technically wrong, very wrong, because I'm just like, okay, the sun is up, so now I will begin my fast. The sun is down. Now I will close my fast. And then I met some people and they're just like, they're eating fast. I'm like, guys, the sun's still up. What are we doing? And then they explain to me, I'm just like, oh dear God, I've done it wrong, you know? Because that's how I was fasting before I was Muslim. I tried fasting. That's how I thought it was. So I just kept with that same mindset. So there's that. My first Jummah khutbah, I didn't even know there was such a thing. Like I knew Jummah, but I didn't know it was compulsory. I didn't know it was a specific time. I had no idea what it was. So I went to a masjid and I would go there consistently to pray Dhuhr because I was working very close to a masjid at the time. I went there, and what happened was, all of a sudden, usually at Dhuhr time, there's maybe 6 uncles. Now there's like 100 people. I'm just like, what's going on here? Okay, maybe there's a special event. So I walked past everyone, prayed my 4 rakats, and just left. And they would have been, I'm just like wondering, because people are seeing me leave and get back to my car. I'm just wondering, like, you know, maybe people, I'll give them the benefit of that. Maybe people thought, okay, this guy's left his kids, like, left something in his car, he's going right. But I just wish someone had just said, like, I was probably at the 3rd or 4th saf praying. All that distance, it's probably like 200 meters for me to get back to my car. I wish someone had said, like, brother, why are you walking the wrong way? You know what I mean? Because I'd be like, oh, this is compulsory. This is a thing I have to do, you know? So sometimes it's just that moment just to be like, and it's hard as well because I've just said, like, you know, don't give people unsolicited advice. But, like, maybe there's, like, a thing that we can do as a community just to, like I love something that Imam Omar Solomon does. I was talking to him. What he told me is that every single topic, every single Jummah khutbah, anything that he's on stage talking to a public, He's talking as if a non-Muslim's in the crowd.
Beautiful.
Because
I
he
love that.
wants them to understand. So even like, have you ever heard, he says inshallah, but sometimes he says God willing as well. Like that's a very thing, you know? So Osama Khan had this rule, rahimahullah, because he passed away. He had this rule that at any point in any of his classes, doesn't care where he's at, just interrupt him if you don't understand the concept. If he said an Arabic word and you don't get it, just interrupt him because that's your right, you know? So that's the type of things that we can do to educate people in a non-judgmental space. But to answer your question, that's what I think for me made the Shahada hard.
Yeah.
It's because I didn't know how hard it was going to be because no one told me. I didn't have the supports immediately after that. Yeah.
And I think like, I mean, I'm reflecting on it now and I often find criticisms, or I've heard criticisms of the Muslim community with exactly this happening. Like everyone's around the convert when they take their Shahada, maybe even the days leading up to it, the weeks leading up to it, the months leading up to it. But then after, sometimes there's that lack of space and kind of route or well-established route that they can go down where they do feel supported, where they can learn the things that are necessary that don't make them feel like they're not a part of the community.
Yeah, 100%. Like that does exist. And I think it exists more so in the cultural masjids. Because when you first take Shahada, you don't know which masjid's which. Like, you don't know that there's like pillars of guidance which do amazing work. You don't know there's Ummah Center, which is a very central masjid in Doncaster. You don't know there's AIC. You don't know these places that have proper programs with proper people, Listerfield Masjid, the list goes on, Preston. You might go to some masjid that's just run by Uncle community and they're just trying their best. And this is what I stress. The Muslim community really does try its best. Yeah. But sometimes it looks different in the scheme of things and what people need based on where people are at. Yeah. So, you know, you might kind of go do this, but...
and what can communities... Oh, sorry, no.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, and the problem with that is those masjids don't really know how to handle those interactions. That's why there's that criticism. There's also, like, for instance, Benevolence, mashallah, they do such a good Shahada program where you come in, it's a very intimate moment. You're walked through what the process is, what you're doing, family are welcome, and they have women's classes and they have men's classes. So straight away, there's that avenue to, like, come, sit, be part of the community. I think that's a beautiful system that they have there, but that's one organization there. I think we need like Benevolence, Convert Collective, Virgin Mary Mosque. We need all these like different PDCC. We need all these different hubs. Absolutely. 20 of them scattered across Victoria to actually be that accessible point. Because like Convert Collective can't do this alone. Benevolence can't do this alone. 6 Degrees can't do this alone. Podium Productions can't. None of us can do this alone. There's not enough people. We need pockets across different geographical spaces, to help with this.
And that's why these conversations are incredibly important.
Yeah. Absolutely. Another topic that I wanted to talk about, and I guess this is in relation to convert mental health specifically. Do you find that new Muslims are comfortable talking about their mental health struggles, or do you find that there is a stigma about saying that I'm okay, I'm fine, I've found God, everything's up? Yeah.
That's a really good question, because I think it's such a pertinent question, and I don't have the answer for it. I'm sorry to say, because I've just only had interactions. I don't speak this in any authority or any sense of that, not at all. I can tell you the stories that I've seen. For me, it was that almost pretender syndrome. Had to feel like I was okay. Tell people I was okay. When people ask, "Oh, how do you love it?" Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah, bro, alhamdulillah. Like, but I think it's when you really build that connection with the new Muslim and they're comfortable with you, they will tell you things that will quickly make you realize, man, like you're not at like you need talking to. You need like let's actually sit down and we need to work out like, you know, who you can talk to that's a professional. You know, that exists. And often I think the issue with mental health is that it's picked up too late. It's like we're picking it up rather than at that time where it's like, okay, let's take you to like 5 sessions with a psychiatrist, 5 sessions with a psychologist, proper active listening with frameworks and step-by-step ways of giving you solutions on how to handle these things. That's a 5-session thing. Next minute we're talking about, no, like it's gotten to the point where it's terrible, you know, and that exists. And so it's very hard. I think what the community or what each of us can do, so what Convert tries to do is we try to create that space where people feel that they can mate each other, talk to experienced Muslims, have that connection with them, that they feel comfortable to have those conversations. But I think anyone can do it as well. Like if you know that there's a convert in, like, in UMIS, you might see that there's a new Muslim taking Shahada. Welcome into the group, like really make them feel welcome, really try to foster that friendship. Sometimes it's hard because maybe personalities don't align. Maybe they're not going to be your friend straight away. But just by inviting them to enough events, like, this is a big one. People always ask us, or sometimes people ask us, I didn't know this could do that, it's pretty cool. People ask us, why do you do Eid events? Because, like, you should be doing education stuff. You should be doing all these things like this. But my response to that is, like, when you solve converts having a place to go for Eid, you solve all these other issues. You solve
100%.
They're involved in the community.
100%.
Someone's actively inviting them. I commend a lot of Muslims who invite converts to their iftar and Eid. I attended 2 iftars in Ramadan just by, like, friends that I know. And they had invited converts, and I was like, and they never met this. I thought that was amazing. I said to them, bro, keep doing this because you're doing good work. I know of on Eid day when certain families, they don't even know the guy, man. Like their kid met this convert at the masjid, they're same age, they invite them to Eid. Amazing issue. I think that it's very hard as well because sometimes, like, welcoming a stranger to your house. But if you know them and they're a normal person, and you maybe start with a coffee session, like just go out, meet them for coffee. If you know a convert from UMIS, just meet them at Cafe Carlton.
Yeah.
If you know a sister who, you've met at a lecture or something like that, just have coffee with them, and slowly say you'll integrate. And that was my beginning, man. Like, I met my really good friends just at a masjid, and then they, mashallah, were trying to convince me for 3 months to come out and have dinner with them. I kept on saying no. Eventually, I had dinner with them. It was the greatest time of my life. It was a beautiful time. And then so they're just trying to keep pulling you in to help you. And then you meet friends. Then you go on a road trip with them. Then you go hiking with them. Then you're your friend, Then you start to open up about these things, like, rather than, say, I'm okay. It's okay, man. I'm actually not okay. There's actually something here I really need to talk to you about. I don't know how to say it. And I just need someone not to judge me. But this is what's going on in my life. You'll never get those conversations just from sitting in a masjid, meeting them, shaking salams. You would never get that. Most of the time you won't, unless someone's very brave. So how do you do that? By building that connection first. Make it a safe space. That's the number one thing. Seek that thing. And sometimes one of the things with converts that I've sort of noticed is that they're going through their own thing, that you might invite them like 20 times and they'll only come once. That's fine. But it's just that knowing when to invite, knowing not when to invite, that sort of stuff. Like knowing when you're being a bit burdensome, but also letting them know that just you're welcome. You're welcome in this space. Or hey, would you like to have coffee? When can we have coffee? If that's something you want to do, and they probably go maybe in 2 months' time, and eventually you'll meet up with them. Maybe alhamdulillah,
holding a hand out, planting that seed,
planting a seed,
all those things. Yeah, absolutely.
Josh, there would be a lot of stories that you've come across in Convo Collective, outside of Convo Collective. Why don't you give us a couple of stories that really touched your heart?
That's Jazakallah khair. So there's a few. I think some of the biggest things I've realized is that the impact that just genuine care for another human being can have in the dawa. Sometimes we think it's dawa is like a mark, like shahada marks, like how many shahadas did you get today? How many shahadas did you get today? I think that's what it should be. I think every Muslim should be asking, how do I make the means of felicity for someone else's relationship with God, whether that person is a Muslim or non-Muslim? What I've seen is, stories like, there's one time I saw this non-Muslim. He was just interested in Islam. So I saw that he wasn't praying. Like, we were at iftar. I was like, all of us are praying. I said to him, man, do you just this is what prayer is, what we do. Do you just want to come and pray with us? Like, I just offered, I was like, you don't have to, but if it's like something, just follow me. He's like, yeah, I've actually always wanted to do it. It's on my bucket list. I'm like, wow, that's pretty cool. This guy comes and prays Maghrib with us. And so he prayed Isha with us. And then I said, okay, now we're praying Sunnah. Just I explained it. He's like, I'll pray that as well. That's 2 more. He does 2 more. Then we're going to Taraweeh. And the night's over at that point. The night's over. So I said to him, look, there's this thing called Taraweeh. Let me know if you want to come. This guy's not my guest, by the way. This is someone else's house. So I'm unsolicitedly inviting this guy to come pray. I just thought, look, because I had a really good conversation with him. We're talking about biofuel. We're talking about construction. This guy's he's just we hit a vibe, and that's one of the things. When we build those connections, you build that vibe. You can start to ask these questions in a sensible way. And so, like, not in a way like, brother, come to Tarawih. And, like, actually, in just in a coincidental way.
Yeah.
And he goes, he's thinking about it. And he goes, yeah, I'd like to come. The host of the iftar, he's like, are you sure you want to come? Because this is long, man. This is not like what we just hear. This is long. I said, yeah, I'll come. So I think I've put the host in a tricky position now because he's like, oh my God, I've invited my neighbor to iftar. It's just meant to be a simple iftar. Now you're making him come to Tarawih. Anyways, we all drive. He comes to Tarawih. This guy's never prayed before, yeah? He gets shown how to do wudu. And that friend, mashallah, is a beautiful brother. He's explained to him what Tarawih is. And then this guy, he comes and sits next to me. And I said, look, whenever you want to go, we'll go. Whenever you want to stay, we'll stay. Like, so I'm just sitting and praying with him the whole time. We're just praying. This guy who's never prayed a single day. He's not even Muslim at this point. He prayed 20 rakah.
Whoa.
20. And not even just like Ferrari rakah. These are proper 2 hours we're staying there. I'm just thinking, good Lord, what have I done to this poor guy? Like, I'm feeling this is beautiful. And there was people in our group who were heading out after 8. They saw this guy still there, like, and they turned back. They're like, I can't live after I look at this guy.
Yeah.
And so he's praying. And I asked him, what did you feel like after this, man? And he was just saying, it's the beautiful thing, most thing. It's such a sweet night, yeah? He took Shahada last year.
Wow.
This is 2 years ago that he did that. And then next year he became a Muslim, yeah? And that's like, that was the effort of my friend, who was actually a neighbor of that guy. So that guy.
And the hadith of the name, like all the adab and akhlaq are ingrained in our religion.
Yeah.
But
So that's a really good story. There's also been cases of so many non-Muslims coming to our events at Combat Collective and just praying or just listening. I love that. That's what makes me happy. You know, like there's Catholics, there's people who are atheists, don't even like have that belief in their heart yet, but they see it, they join in. Such a powerful thing. I'll tell you a story that was sad, and I'll tell you a story that was good. I'll be brief on them. The story that was sad was, and why I say it was sad is because there was a lot of things that maybe had we been 5 years in what we're seeking to be, there would have been the ability to do this. And it just shows, like, sometimes, like, you try your best, but Allah has other plans. That's okay. That's the dawa. There was this kid, 12 years old, took Shahada, very young age, yeah? Came from a single parent household. His mother and father were separated. Mother was somewhat interested in Islam. He had a family. His mother's best friend was Muslim. And so that family was taking this kid out to Jummah, trying to just teach him bits and pieces about being Muslim.
Yeah.
Beautiful kid. What happened was the father really did not like Islam, like outright Islamophobe. Custody battle, kid ended up going with the father. Father took the kid overseas. We just don't know what's happened to that kid and his faith and his relationship with Allah. And inshallah, make dua for him because inshallah, he's still there. But he got taken from a situation that's hard to a situation that's very hard. Now, I remember we were trying to organize, like me and a few friends, this was outside of Convert Collective, it was just something to do something that's the right thing. We were trying to get a cricket game because the guy was playing cricket. So I was like, if we can get enough young kids, because in my mind, I'm just like, if we can get enough young kids with their parents to play cricket and bring this kid along to play cricket, his mum can meet these young parents. And his mum can then become, because at the moment his mum's Muslim, it's like this kid's life is intrinsically Muslim. Unfortunately, that just didn't happen, yeah? And I always feel regret at that for maybe not moving quick enough. At the end of the day, like Allah guides who will guide. Of
course,
it's not in our hands. But that was always the thing. I was just like, man, maybe if it was a bit faster, maybe if we would just organize the thing, but maybe if it happened, like Allahu Akbar.
Yeah, of course. But you can't think like that.
You can't think like exactly.
And again, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward you for the effort of
intention.
That was actually a lot of the community mobilizing. It just takes with these things like dawa is complicated. And then I just goes through this as a segue. It's like, one should never be critical of other dawa organizations. It's a lesson to myself first and foremost. We might see people doing it the wrong way. We might see people saying supposedly the wrong way, but everyone's trying their best. That's the thing. And we couldn't do what we wanted to there, but that's us just trying the best. Then there's this really good story, man. This story. I actually remind myself about both because they both teach me fear and hope. And the hope was this kid again, 12 years old. He took Shahada at my local masjid. And I was just like
12 is crazy.
12 is crazy, man. The sheikh said this kid had been reading the Quran for a year.
Wow.
And was very concerned about his existence and his afterlife and his meeting his maker.
Wow.
So this kid read, I was just like, how did this kid even get his hand on the Quran? Like,
Bro,
I
seriously,
just picked it up and just started reading. Yeah. Very innocent child as well. So anyways, he takes shahada in front of the masjid. Again, they do the whole thing. But this sheikh must have a very emotionally intelligent sheikh. He makes sure that this kid's not going to get crowded. He makes sure to tell everyone, like, make sure, like, people aren't going to be there to bother this kid. And so he's with the kid the whole time. So everyone's shaking this kid's hand. People are giving him a hug. People are kissing his forehead, that sort of stuff. And this kid ends up coming out of the masjid. And I said, you know what? I'm just going to introduce myself. The sheikh already knows me, so I can talk to this kid thing. So I'm just thinking, and during that Jummah, I always make 2 du'as. These are the 2 du'as that I do. I don't believe, like I'll tell you. I always say, inshallah, everyone else on the audience make this du'a for me. Is my mother coming to Islam, my brother coming to Islam, and having pious children, inshallah. And may that be for all of us, inshallah. And that particular day, I was just like, all right, these 2 du'as have to sort of wait, because the du'a I'm going to make is for this kid's family to become Muslim, because this is a 12-year-old. He needs his mum and dad to be Muslim for it to be easy for him. Because there's no way his parents are going to drive. But then I realized, then I found out that as I'm walking along, I'm walking with the sheikh, and I just shook this kid's hand. That's what I did. I said, welcome to Islam. I'm a revert, And I said to the sheikh, we need to get the dad and mum to the masjid and have this kid's come here, but we need to get this dad. I'll spend whatever time you need for us to talk to the dad and mum to get them understanding about Islam. The guys, well, the dad and mum's here. So I'm like, oh, Allahu Akbar, the dad and mum have come. So I talked to the dad. Beautiful man, beautiful, beautiful family. And the dad is like, yeah, look, we just want him to carve his own path. He's very interested in it. We're not going to stop him. We're going to support him. I was like, this is like Allah. This is like the perfect soil, mashallah. Like the seed has been planted in the most fertile soil. I'll just make it dry. Let this thing. And the sheikh goes to me, the mum is very close to taking shahada. I have a chat with both parents, and I'm like, I can see it in the mum's heart that she wants to. She's like, But with these things, it's like if you plant a seed and you go dig it every day, it's never going to grow. Yeah. So just let it rest. Then, what was it? Probably 3 months after, I think, and I'm in contact with the dad regularly, just messaging back and forth. 3 months later, during Ramadan, the parents have taken shahada. So both parents, and at first I thought, okay, the mum's going to take shahada, and the dad's sort of just, both of them did.
Beautiful.
And the conversation they had with me was just so surreal. They're telling me things like, we always believed we were Muslim, now we really feel it. I realized so much of the general life. And these are people, mashallah, just very beautiful Western family. It just goes to show how Islam can change. Mufti Said often says this one thing. Actually, I shouldn't have said Mufti Said because maybe I'm just dreaming this, but so someone in my life has said this, where they've said that Islam hasn't really reached its peak until it's wearing the color of the skin of the dominant society. What they mean by that is okay, if you look at subcontinental India, when the Yemeni traders first came, Islam didn't reach its peak until the people of India were Muslim. Islam won't reach its peak in Australia until what we see is a really multicultural Islam. That's where we forget that multicultural is also the Western people. Yeah. Until Maoris adopted, until Western people adopted, until people from UK and the Philippines, everyone just adopted. Yeah, and I think I'm going to stop myself going tangent, but basically the beauty is that this family came to Islam just because of a 12-year-old boy taking shahada, and that was probably the most surreal moment I've ever had with Convert Collective was seeing that. Yeah. And I just couldn't believe it. I'm just like, that really reminded me that whatever we're trying to do in the dawa is really not up to us. It's really all from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And now our job is just to support that family continuously. Invite them out for coffee. Don't be harsh on them. When they say look, wow, we don't pray Fajr prayer. No worries, man. Just be gentle with them. Yeah. Let them slowly come. And those are the really stories that hit home deep for me. It's the things that when you finished a working day, you got to do this event, you got to do all these little things. Those are things that keep you going, and you realize how how Allah has really given you an amana. You can't muck around with it. And Allah forgive me for the mistakes I've done and help us do more.
Forgive all of us, Ya Rabbi.
Yeah, subhanAllah. That's a beautiful story, and I think a beautiful story to I guess, end our conversation on as well. Josh, finally, I guess for those who want support as converts or even as people who might be struggling with their Islam, what can they do and what does Convert Collective have for them to offer them?
Yeah. So I'll answer that question in a broad perspective. It's like, if you want to make that first step, there are community organizations. So Convert Collective is just one of those. There is Podium, there is 6 Degrees, like a lot of these youth groups, mashallah, like you guys, like you can get involved. One of the best things for converts to do is get involved in an organization, because through the best form of inclusion is participation. So that's a key thing there. There's benevolence. If you live in the north, there's Preston Masjid. They're quite a welcoming, open group as well. They've got programs. There's Virgin Mary Masjid in the west, again, masjid with a lot of programs there. And there's PDCC in the southeast and Ummah Centre in Doncaster. I've probably missed some, and please forgive me if I have, because there's a lot of masjids doing things now. But most masjids have a program, a youth program, something that people can actually be part of. In terms of having that really emotional connection, I think benevolence is a great spot as well. Convert Collective is always there, mashallah. Like, alhamdulillah, we've been, Allah's allowed us to do that. So, like, we run monthly catch-ups. We just post it on Instagram. People can, inshallah, come to a place that they feel welcome. There's no judgment. They can just come, share a meal with us. We'll go through we're not trying to teach people like fiqh. We're not trying to teach people like the rules. We're just talking about things. You know, we might talk about Ramadan. We might talk about culture. We had this really good session one time with Sheikh Mustafa Briggs, and he taught about things that I'd never even knew. Like, you know, he was talking about how clothes we wear, culture looks different. You know, the French came up with the word shirt because of the word kameez. And it was an Arabic thing, and how all this is tied together. And really, humanity is much closer than we think we are. Very beautiful thing. So those are the type of things we try to do to welcome, make some friends. You know, let's like start the journey together. That's what we're trying to do. We have our Eid gathering coming up. Look out for that on our socials. And ultimately, I think if I was to end on one sort of note, it's just as a community, I think, you know, we're better together. So let's really try to create a space where converts can be at that center of that community, and we can all support them, not in a way we shelter them or shield them or suffocate them, but just genuine support.
Scaffold.
Part of the team.
Scaffolding. Exactly. So alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah.
Thank you so much, Josh. Genuinely learned so much from our conversation. It's been a beautiful time, and thank you, Habib. And inshallah, the audience will walk away with many lessons as well.
Inshallah. And Allah bless everyone. Thank you.
Jazakallah khair.
Jazakallah khair.
Thank you for being with us today. If anything in this episode felt heavy or difficult, please reach out to someone you trust. You can also contact Kids Helpline on 1-800-55-1800, which is a free counselling service available 24/7 for those aged 5 to 25 years. Or you can book an appointment with our Helping Hands team on the website 6degrees.org.au. Take care of yourself, and inshallah, we'll see you next time.